Welcome to Moments in History channel. Have you ever wondered how one of the world's most incredible civilizations, ancient Egypt, came to be? We often think of the great pharaohs, the pyramids, and the Sphinx, but the story starts much earlier. Long before the first king unified Egypt around 3100 BCE, the foundations were being laid by a network of powerful and competitive societies known as the Nile Valley Chiefdoms. These were the true pioneers, the trailblazers who set the stage for millennia of pharaonic rule. Today, we're going to journey back in time, over 5,000 years ago, to explore these formative communities and understand how they transformed simple farming villages into the building blocks of a legendary empire. Our story begins along the life-giving banks of the Nile River. For thousands of years, this river was the heart of the region. Its predictable annual floods deposited rich, fertile silt onto the surrounding land, creating a narrow green ribbon of life in the middle of a vast desert. Early hunter-gatherers were drawn to this reliable source of water and food, and eventually they began to settle down. Around 6000 BCE, they started farming, cultivating wheat and barley, and raising livestock. This agricultural revolution was the first critical step. It allowed people to stop wandering and build permanent homes. Small villages began to pop up all along the Nile, from the marshy delta in the north to the rocky cataracts in the south. Life in these early villages was relatively simple. People lived in small communities, farming the land together. But the reliability of the Nile's floods meant something extraordinary: surplus. They could grow more food than they needed to survive day to day. This surplus was a game changer. It meant not everyone had to be a farmer. Some people could specialize in other skills, becoming potters, weavers, toolmakers, or priests. This specialization of labor created a more complex and interconnected society. It also led to the accumulation of wealth. Those who were better farmers, or controlled more fertile land, or had valuable skills, could gather more resources. As these villages grew into larger towns, a new form of social organization emerged: the chiefdom. A chiefdom is a society ruled by a single powerful leader, a chief, who holds authority over a specific region. In the Nile Valley, these chiefs were often the heads of the most influential families or clans. Their power wasn't just political, it was also deeply rooted in religion and economics. They were seen as intermediaries between the community and the gods, responsible for performing rituals to ensure a good harvest and the continued flooding of the Nile. They also controlled the distribution of surplus food, managed large-scale projects like building irrigation canals, and organized trade with other communities. These early chiefdoms were primarily located in two distinct cultural and geographical zones: Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt. Lower Egypt was the northern region, a wide, fertile delta where the Nile fans out before meeting the Mediterranean Sea. Its people were known for their distinctive pottery and burial customs. Upper Egypt was the long, narrow valley to the south, stretching for hundreds of miles. This region was more arid, but the Nile Valley was just as fertile. The cultures that developed here, like the Naqada culture, would become incredibly influential. These two regions were different, but they were also connected by the river, which acted as a superhighway for trade and communication. Power in these chiefdoms wasn't just about controlling food. It was also about prestige and symbolism. Chiefs demonstrated their authority through elaborate displays. They wore fine jewelry, lived in larger homes, and most importantly, were buried in bigger and more elaborate tombs than anyone else. Archaeology has unearthed incredible evidence from this period. In places like Hierakonpolis and Abydos in Upper Egypt, we find tombs filled with luxury goods, exquisite pottery, carved ivory figures, cosmetic palettes, and weapons. Some of these items were sourced from far away, like lapis lazuli from Afghanistan or obsidian from Ethiopia, proving that these chiefs controlled extensive trade networks. These grand burials were a clear message to their communities: our leader is powerful, wealthy, and divinely connected, even in death. This was the beginning of the royal ideology that would define the pharaohs. As the chiefdoms grew in population and wealth, something else grew with them: competition. They weren't all living in perfect harmony. They were rivals. Fertile land was the most valuable resource, and chiefs were constantly vying for control over more territory. They commanded groups of warriors to defend their lands and to raid their neighbors. This constant conflict created an environment where the strong consumed the weak. Smaller, less powerful chiefdoms were absorbed by their larger, more aggressive neighbors, either through military conquest or strategic alliances, perhaps through marriage. Over several centuries, this process of consolidation led to the emergence of a handful of super chiefdoms that dominated their respective regions in Upper and Lower Egypt. The final phase of this prehistoric drama was the struggle for unification. The chiefdoms of Upper Egypt, particularly those centered at Hierakonpolis, Nakada, and Abydos, grew especially powerful. They developed a shared culture and a powerful ruling elite. We see this reflected in their art. The famous Narmer palette, one of the most important artifacts from ancient Egypt, tells this story visually. On one side, a king, identified as Narmer, is shown wearing the white crown of Upper Egypt while striking down an enemy. On the other side, he is shown wearing the red crown of Lower Egypt, symbolizing his rule over both lands. This palette is a stunning piece of political propaganda, celebrating the military conquest and unification of the entire Nile Valley under a single ruler. This unification, which occurred around 3100 BCE, is traditionally seen as the dawn of dynastic Egypt. The first king, who might have been Narmer or another ruler named Menes, established a new capital at Memphis, strategically located at the junction of Upper and Lower Egypt. From this point forward, Egypt was a unified state, a territorial kingdom ruled by a divine pharaoh. The fragmented world of the chiefdoms was gone, replaced by a centralized bureaucracy, a national religion, and a shared identity. But the legacy of the chiefdoms endured. They had created the social hierarchy, the economic systems, the religious beliefs, and the political ambitions that made the pharaonic state possible. The pharaohs inherited the symbols of power, the control over trade, and the concept of divine kingship that had been forged over centuries of competition in the Nile Valley. So, when we look at the breathtaking pyramids of Giza or the golden mask of Tutankhamun, it's important to remember that these marvels didn't just appear out of nowhere. They are the final products of a long and complex journey that began in small farming villages along the Nile. The anonymous chiefs who ruled these early societies were the true architects of ancient Egypt. They managed the land, mobilized labor, fought wars, and built the political and ideological framework that would last for 3,000 years. Their story is a powerful reminder that every great civilization is built upon the foundations laid by those who came before. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey back to the dawn of Egyptian civilization. If you found this story as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button and subscribe to Moments in History channel for more deep dives into ancient history. Let me know in the comments which ancient civilization you'd like to explore next. Until next time, stay curious.